I'm Michael Rayner. I'm the senior partner of Cox Architectures in Queensland, part of a national practice called Cox Architecture, and I've worked out that I've been here now for 35 years. I always hope there's something bigger, but I don't think there's one thing that I'd say is the highlight, and I really perhaps once used to think, you know, if I could design a building and it was everything I ever wanted it to be, that would be the biggest achievement, because most designs get compromised as they go through. But in reality, I think, you know, there's kind of many highlights, and a lot of them are serendipitous. So if you took Griffith, discovering while we were master planning for Nathan, some researchers doing solar hydrogen technology, paying attention to that, and then being able to incorporate it in a building on that campus, and the whole building and its design responds to that technology. That's one real highlight. I actually had someone, we've got a very bright young student just joined us, and she asked exactly the same question the other day, and one simple answer, to her was read, and also but read particular things. So I said to her, I'll give you 20 books that I reckon, you know, you could read 50 books and they may not help you. The 20 books aren't all on architecture. So what I was really telling her is to try and become as world-wise as you can. It's really about a much broader knowledge, and I think unfortunately architects historically have tended to think they only needed to know about buildings and aesthetics and materials and those sorts of things. You're now actually shaping the envelopes for people to do what they do in a new world. Back then, I would have actually, I used to think certain subject areas were kind of tedious and really had nothing to do with architecture. Structure is one of them, the thing that holds up buildings. You know, we thought we just wanted to design, but actually I started to realise all those other disciplines that are related to us are about design. Structure's not boring, it's actually fascinating. The other thing I think is really important is you do a course, and it's almost a shock architecture, I think, when you start doing it, because you don't quite know what it is other than you're going to design buildings. And I mentioned earlier about the kind of moral compass, but I think you do have to kind of work out what your values are, because it's a very value-based profession, and if you work to your values, hopefully that will impart to other people's values that are going to utilise your buildings. And an example might be if someone said, you know, I want to build a big resort in a rainforest in the Daintree in North Queensland. If you weren't thinking, you'd go, oh, great opportunity. You really do have to think, is this the right way to go, and is this an appropriate thing to happen? And you get faced with that problem all the time. And the challenges for that wider field are, one is urbanisation, because it's happening in every country in the world, including growing countries, and densification causes all sorts of issues, whether they're social issues or environmental issues. So I think that challenge is becoming increasingly almost exponential. I think climate change is a very significant aspect to it, and I think it is occurring. I think even response to emergencies and things, and being able to be a fixer rather than just a designer is something that architects have to start becoming involved in. We're getting involved in Nepal, for instance, right now already, because the way we think and the research that we've done. I think industry has its own challenges within it. There are now many players in creating buildings, and bringing those people on one path is important, particularly industry and government. Often see different directions. They really have to come together much more strongly, and I think countries or cities where industry and government are very combined on their aspirations and processes will be the more successful ones, rather than pulling apart. So there's a whole range of issues there that make it a very challenging profession to go forward. And I just think back, and you think, you know, 50 years ago, the art of architecture was really what most architects had to worry about, and it was an aesthetic industry. Now it's not that anymore. It's actually a responder to how people need to live, work, study, and so on. The problem is we don't know what's going to drive the future. You commonly get surprises. It's how quick you can respond to those is important. We do a fair amount of research. We do actually research with universities and have various arrangements with universities to try and preempt directions that are happening and be prepared with different responses. As I said, of course, something can radically change in time. I mentioned a minute ago the potential that a building that might have lasted for 50 years may only last for 15 if it's not adaptable to the future. If it is adaptable to the future, we might get 50 years out of it. We still need to work for now to an extent, and so now and future are two kind of different things. But I do think there are enough issues and challenges around that you do need to think, what do people need now? And because if you don't do that, you'll start to do things that are kind of just not firm in their response. All I'm saying is, at the same time, we are researching other potential models so that we can contribute to that debate, because the worst thing for an architect perhaps is to sort of be caught on the hop and then be told by someone who may not know what they're really doing, this is what I want you to do. So it's only through research knowledge, and that's why I mentioned the contact between universities and private industry is really important, is to have a kind of enough awareness of different models that when an issue comes up, you can grab at something and say, how about this approach? That's just vital, I think, these days, and makes architecture a very stimulating industry, because all the answers aren't known. I kind of wouldn't like to work in a profession where all the answers were obvious. So it makes it a wonderful profession.